For most, Friday's going to be a fine, bright day, starting cloudy over the Channel Isles. There will still be showers coming in across Scotland, mostly over the north, not too many through the central belt. And the showers also mostly in the morning, tending to ease off by the afternoon. Sunny spells then for quite a few of us during Friday. Temperatures mid to high teens, but quite warm in the south with light winds over the Midlands, South Wales and southern England, widely over 20 degrees Celsius. A fine Friday evening to come as well. Any showers across northern Scotland continuing to fizzle away. That'll lead into, by and large, a fine start to the weekend. Saturday, dry and bright with sunny spells for most, turning cloudier and quite a bit cooler for most of us, though, by Sunday. Goodbye.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello and welcome to We Need to Talk About on GB News with me, Alex Phillips, where we get stuck into the big issues we need to be looking at in depth. Nothing is off the table, and I'm not going to cancel anyone for saying what they think. Keeping me company today is Belinda de Lucy, former Brexit Party MEP and political commentator. And here's what we're discussing on the show. Can Boris Johnson dodge the fallout of Partygate? There's a new raft of backbench MPs call for his resignation. His Chancellor is dazzling us with a new windfall tax, or should I say, a temporary targeted energy profit levy. Will the PM hang on? We'll have the latest from Westminster. The heartbreak of the Texas shootings. We'll be hearing about the real-life impact on the close-knit community of Uvalde from a mother who lost her own son in tragic circumstances. And as the excitement builds ahead of the Jubilee celebrations, we get a sneak preview of the RAF flypast marking 70 years of service by Her Majesty the Queen. That's what we're talking about for the next hour, but what do you need to talk about? Email me, gbviews@gbnews.uk, or tweet us at gbnews. First, though, it's time for the GB News headlines.
Good afternoon, it's 2:02. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB Newsroom. The Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, has announced a £5 billion tax on oil and gas companies to help families struggling through the cost of living crisis. Millions of households will receive a £400 discount off their energy bills, which won't need to be repaid. The lowest income earners will be given £650 in two lump sums in July and in the autumn. Pensioners will receive a one-off payment of £300. And in September, 6 million disabled people will receive £150.
Supporting people with the cost of living is only one part of our plan for a stronger economy. A plan that is creating more jobs, cutting taxes on working people, reducing our borrowing and debt, driving businesses to invest and innovate more, unleashing a skills revolution, seizing the benefits of Brexit and levelling up growth in all parts of the United Kingdom. The British people can trust this government because we have a plan for a stronger economy, and I commend it to this House.
Meanwhile, Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves criticised the government for taking so long to back Labour's plan.
For months, it has been clear that more was necessary to help people bring their bills down. So what took this government so long? Every day that they have refused to act, £53 million more added to Britain's household bills during this cost of living crisis. This government's dither and delay has cost our country dearly.
Two more Conservative MPs say they no longer support the Prime Minister following the Partygate inquiry. More than 15 are now calling for Boris Johnson's resignation. The acting head of the Met Police, Sir Stephen House, could also face further questions over the Force's investigation. He's appearing before the London Assembly's Police and Crime Committee. Despite fresh calls for Boris Johnson to quit, former Tory MP Michael Brown told GB News he thinks he'll survive.
Boris is still in danger, Eamon. He's first of all got to get through this Privileges Committee report. Did he deliberately lie? It's a very high threshold. I think he'll get away with that. What he's not going to get away with over the next 18 months, though, is if he doesn't nuke inflation.
The Texas gunman who killed 19 children and 2 teachers was reportedly inside the primary school for up to an hour. Armed with an assault rifle, the suspect, Salvador Ramos, locked himself in a grade 4 classroom and opened fire. The 18-year-old posted an online message just minutes earlier warning he was going to attack. President Joe Biden says he'll visit Uvalde in the coming days to talk to the victims' families. The Foreign Secretary has accused Russia's President Vladimir Putin of holding the world to ransom over food. The Kremlin has rejected claims it blocked grain exports from Ukraine, saying the West created the situation by imposing sanctions. Speaking in Bosnia, Liz Truss said pressure must be maintained against Moscow.
In my view, it is completely appalling that Putin is trying to hold the world to ransom, and he's essentially weaponising hunger and lack of food amongst the poorest people around the world. We simply cannot allow this to happen. Putin needs to remove the blockade on Ukrainian grain.
The first cases of monkeypox have been confirmed in Wales and now Northern Ireland, bringing the total number across the UK to 80. The Public Health Agency says it's working closely with trusts and GPs to raise awareness of the disease. It says the risk in Northern Ireland is considered low, as monkeypox doesn't spread easily and cases are rare. Public Health Wales also says its one case is being managed. The BBC is being ordered to hire more working-class people to make it more accountable to those who fund it. As part of a mid-term review, the Culture Secretary has issued a legal direction to make sure 25% of staff are from low socioeconomic backgrounds. Nadine Dorries says the broadcaster must also increase the amount of money it spends on producing TV programmes outside of London to 50% by the end of 2027. She says the changes will help make the BBC more impartial. And a British man with a debilitating condition has had a life-changing double hand transplant. 48-year-old Stephen Gallagher lost the use of his own hands because of an autoimmune disease called scleroderma, which causes scarring of the skin and internal organs. The father of 3 went ahead with the surgery despite being warned he could lose his hands altogether. He says his new ones are amazing. This is GB News. We'll bring you more as it happens now, though. It's back to Alex, and we need to talk about.
It is a magician's top trick, distracting the audience so they miss the sleight of hand. And just like that, poof, yesterday's headlines are magicked away with a shiny new policy pulled out of a hat today. A new windfall tax, or should I say, a temporary targeted energy profit levy, as the Chancellor snappily put it. From Number 10's spin-ops saying a windfall tax was deeply unconservative, today they're poo-pooing the accusation it's been suddenly announced to distract from Partygate. Just as the drip-drip of backbenchers calling for Boris to go resumes. Following Sue Gray's report yesterday with red wine up walls and spew on the floor, Boris is having to woo left, right and centre to calm things down. Last night, he told the Tory 1922 committee a booze ban at Number 10 isn't on the cards, saying Britain wouldn't have won the Second World War if Churchill was dry. Something which for some went down like the proverbial bucket after a Downing Street do. He'll also have to face the Privileges Committee at some point, which, well, probably will be in 2025, judging by how long Partygate is dragging on, who'll decide if he misled Parliament, after which he could be handed a 10-day suspension and a recall petition, meaning the good folk of Uxbridge would decide if he survives. But Wakefield might get in there first. With a by-election in June, many Tory MPs will use as a litmus test on whether the country is turning from blue to red and decide whether Boris is too acidic. Well, let's assess the Partygate report's fallout and the PM's chances with our political correspondent, Tom Harwood, who is in Downing Street. Tom, does anybody believe the fact that Downing Street are saying they haven't brought out this non-windfall tax, windfall tax to distract from Partygate?
Oh yes, this not a windfall tax, but a temporary targeted energy profits levy. That's what we're supposed to believe. To you or I, it's basically a windfall tax with a couple of caveats. But yes, it's certainly a difficult situation to have moved on so quickly from Sue Gray Day yesterday. Of course, all the papers this morning covering in gory detail everything that was revealed that happened in the buildings behind me. And I say buildings because it is a sweeping street, this. It's not just Number 10, of course, but sweeping right through to Whitehall, indeed, Number 9 famously, Number 11, Number 12 as well. This is a big complex, 5,400 square metres of space within it, where parties across 8 days took place, as assessed by the Metropolitan Police. But no, it does seem to be that this is a timing for help with people with energy bills that no one predicted, given that initially the Labour Party was calling for immediate help, well, after Rishi Sunak brought out his first package, of course, and the Conservative Party was saying that help would not arrive until the autumn, when, of course, the energy price cap is being reassessed. There's a 6-monthly reassessment of that energy price cap, and given that that is the case, the original argument of the government was it wouldn't be prudent, it wouldn't be right to deliver halfway through that cycle a new way of helping people with those bills. We don't know what the market conditions will be precisely in several months' time. However, clearly that decision has now been brought forward. This was a fiscal event. This was announced by the Chancellor at the dispatch box of the House of Commons, and this will be a significant economic transfer. A windfall tax, of course, 25% on the profits of energy companies, although there is a deduction for those that continue to plough investment into the country, and indeed likely some other taxation going into this as well, because this is what is expected to be a £15 billion package, the most extraordinary amount of money, over £1,000 going to the least well-off 8 million households, but also £400 going to the vast majority of households. It's an extraordinary amount of money that has been sloshing around, and indeed it's a mechanism that was being disparaged by Number 10 only very recently. This does seem like a potentially desperate move, at least the timing of it, if not the actuality.
Tom, thank you ever so much. It looks like Boris Johnson's hired his new Downing Street staff behind you there. They've been giving you a little wave. You haven't noticed, you haven't got eyes in the back of your head, but say hello from us. They entertained me while you were talking, I must admit. Tom Harwood, our political correspondent.
I'm very glad to hear
it. Well, let's get a sense of how all of this has been playing out with voters. GB News national reporter Paul Hawkins is live for us in Boris Johnson's constituency of Uxbridge. Now, Paul, a convoluted process with the Privileges Committee who are going to assess whether or not the Prime Minister misled Parliament. And if they find that he does, he could be suspended for 10 days, triggering a parliamentary recall, which would essentially mean the people of Uxbridge, where you are, would be the ones to decide Boris Johnson's fate.
Yeah, that's right, Alex. That's exactly what would happen if he was found guilty of lying to Parliament. Of course, that Privileges Committee will take months to bring about their report. Right now, people aren't really talking about Sue Gray. They don't really care about Sue Gray's report today. They're more worried about the cost of living and about how they're going to afford to put food on the table and, come October, heat their homes. So earlier today, we were chatting to some of the people on the High Street. This is before Rishi Sunak made his statement, and we asked them...
Paul, do you mind if I just interrupt you there? Because I understand Boris Johnson is addressing the Commons about the Queen. Let's go to that live now.
As the scholars of Westminster cried out from the Abbey's triforium on Coronation Day 70 years ago, Vivat Regina Elizabetha, God save Queen Elizabeth.
Leader of the Opposition, Sir Keir Starmer.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. May I second the motion and associate myself and my party with the sentiments expressed by the Prime Minister. It is an honour to humbly address Her Majesty on such a momentous occasion. This is the first Platinum Jubilee for a British monarch, the longest reigning monarch our country has ever had. Her Majesty is the personification of our nation's great history. At the time of her coronation in 1953, our country was emerging into a new age. The war behind us, new opportunities ahead. As it is now, Britain was at a crossroads, forging a new chapter in our history. Her Majesty has been so much part of that history that it's almost impossible to imagine Britain without her. 14 Prime Ministers, but Her Majesty has remained a constant. When historians look back at our Elizabethan age, they will write of how her commitment to her people, her dedication to duty, her steely resolve made her the perfect monarch for the people and the times that she led. I've been honoured with the pleasure of meeting Her Majesty, most recently, as the Health Secretary knows, when I became a Privy Councillor. But I also have the unique experience of being grateful for a time when Her Majesty was otherwise occupied. For the son of a toolmaker and a nurse, growing up in a town just outside the M25, being invited to Buckingham Palace to receive a knighthood was never really in the script. It was an incredibly special moment. My parents said it was the proudest day of their lives. But there was a catch. My parents couldn't bear leaving their dog at home. So in the car that drove through the gates of Buckingham Palace was my mum, my dad, and our family dog. Not some small dog, but a Great Dane, barking so loudly that the car almost shook from side to side. And the image of the Queen's corgis coming face to face with him flashed through my mind. And to this day, I'm grateful to the Royal Guard that my dad persuaded to watch over him during the ceremony. He had an audience with our family dog so that my parents could have an audience with Prince Charles. Her Majesty is the most famous face on the planet.
Well, there you go. Keir Starmer talking about a dog. Well, we have been otherwise talking about the windfall tax. The Queen may well be pleased to hear that she's going to get some help heating the castle. But what about the people of Uxbridge? Let's go back to Paul Hawkins.
Yeah, hi Alex. So as I was saying earlier, we were speaking to some people on the high street. This was before Rishi Sunak made his announcement, but we did ask them how they felt about getting an extra, or rather getting an extra 400 quid in their wallet because of that £400 discount on their energy bills come October. And this is what they had to tell us.
It's not going to be enough, but it will help. But the thing is now, with the price energy cap, it's going until, I don't know, maybe 2,800 per year.
That's right,
so
that's right.
When we compare the situation here with the other European countries like Germany, I have a colleague in Germany, they said that they do a lot of things there to help people. Here, we had no that a good action who concern everyone, to help everyone to fight this crisis, because it's a really crisis, and anyone could feel that.
I mean, to be honest, we're not living on the breadline, but obviously there's people that it's going to affect. And when you hear that people are having to choose between food and utilities, it's, you know, I suppose we're lucky that we're, at the moment, we're okay, but, you know, it's the people that aren't going to be okay.
Everything's going up. Well, what was it? Dog food went up from 79p to £1.10 the other day, and it's like these increases are a bit too much, especially compared to what people think you can live off. You know what I mean? Because, like I'm saying, universal credit is like, this is how much we're giving you to live off for a month. Now it's like, I'd spend all of that on just travelling in and out of London every day. Do you know what I mean? And food, and like, especially being homeless, it's not like I can buy food cheap and store it in a refrigerator and keep it. You know.
Yeah, so that's what people were telling us earlier. In fact, the first chap with the glasses on, he's working multiple jobs to try and make ends meet, and he did point out that, yeah, okay, it helps, but it's not enough. And he did make the point that it's a package of measures, it's not a long-term strategy, and that the government needs to think long-term about this, because yes, prices will fall eventually, inflation will come down, but it's not going to come down anytime soon. And so really the government needs to think a little bit more long term about this. But yeah, certainly people were welcoming what the Chancellor has announced today.
Yeah, and some noisy protests from the dog there about the price of dog food going up as well. Thank you ever so much, Paul Hawkins. Lots of dogs popping up in my show today. Well, let's mop up Partygate and today's developments in Westminster with my studio guest for the show, Belinda de Lucy, former Brexit Party MEP, and Peter Edwards, former editor of Labour List website. Peter, I'm going to start with you. It's a windfall tax by any other name, isn't it? Your side of the political debate should be quite pleased about this announcement.
Yes, Labour will claim it as a victory, even though it's much delayed. And look, you know, try not to be party political about everything, because viewers might get fed up of partisanship. But to be frank, this is a capitulation on the part of the government. It's 6 months too late, and it's a capitulation designed to cover up the shame of Partygate, the vomiting, the fighting, the karaoke, and the smashing of a child's swing in the hours and days before the Duke of Edinburgh's funeral. So, belatedly, the Tory government has seen some sense, but as Rachel Reeves said in your clip earlier, what about the people that have racked up bills over the winter just gone?
Yeah, I mean, it is the case, isn't it, Belinda, that this will be music to a lot of people's ears. But is it right that this is going to apply universally? I mean, that means people with billions in the bank are going to get money off their fuel bills, and perhaps we should be asking them to help those at the very bottom.
Well, I have concerns about means testing just because of the delay. I mean, we can't even get passports issued or driving licence issues at the moment without months and months of backlog. So if people want money in their pocket now, I think means testing has to go a bit out of the window for now. The form filling and then the time it takes to means test people, it's just not what people want at the moment. Also, I think people who do have money, pensioners who have money, have paid into the system for decades, and they're often the most charitable, generous people anyway, giving money every year to charity. I think it's right to do it universally and not means test.
Peter, do you think it's right to do it universally?
I think in this case it is, yeah. One has to bear in mind that the means testing can be slow, and rightly or wrongly, this is going to be a one-off measure. We have means testing for other things. So, for example, you start to lose your child benefits, you go up the income tax rates, but that's permanent part of the tax mechanism. Here we're talking about one-off in response to things, not just unprecedented cost of living crisis and inflation, but also the unprecedented profits of firms like BP, who, by the way, are quite comfortable with this type of levy. So I think a means test would just be too slow and too complex. Obviously, the Labour Party in Parliament would be very unlikely to demand that, because Labour has generally been an advocate for universal benefits, such as the NHS being the biggest one.
And Belinda, finally, I mean, you know, it does seem to me like capitulation to Labour. It does seem like it's very well timed to distract from Partygate, but does that matter?
Well, I don't think a lot of people in the country will mind that it's a bit about optics at the moment and good headlines. I think a lot of people are done with Partygate, and they want money in their pockets. And they want money in their pockets as soon as possible, and security leading up to winter. People are terrified of what's happening, you know, as the weather drops and people are isolated on their own in the cold again. So I actually think people are ready to move on, and whether it's for theatre, optics, it's done now. I'm ready to move over off from Partygate, and I think a lot of people are as well.
Linda, thank you. Now I want to know... Oh, Peter, yeah, come back. Say again.
It's not over for Boris Johnson. Partygate's going to cause him a lot more pain. Let's see if we get that recall petition. Let's see what the Commons committee say about truthfulness. I'm afraid it's not over for Boris yet.
Yeah, no, do you know what? I think you are right. I think this could drag on well into next year, frankly. Peter, Belinda, thank you ever so much. Now, I want to know your views at home. Are you there thinking, oh, it's all a bit cynical, isn't it? This windfall, not windfall tax being announced the day after Sue Gray's report? Or are you just saying, good, at long last? GBViews at gbnews.uk. Or, of course, tweet us at GBNews. You are with GB News on TV and radio. Coming up, the utter heartbreak of the Texas school shootings. We'll speak to one mother whose son was killed about the impact of losing a loved one in shocking circumstances. It's time for a short break now and a check on the weather.
Hello, Alex Deacon here with your latest weather update. Three-way split today. Sunshine and showers for Scotland and Northern Ireland. A dull and damp zone in central areas, and then largely dry and bright in the south thanks to an area of high pressure. Low pressure is dominating further north, and it's in these central areas where we've got the dull damp weather from these weather fronts bringing cloud and rain for much of the afternoon over parts of northern England, north and mid Wales, and into the Midlands at times. The far north of England may brighten up. Some fine weather for Northern Ireland, not too many showers here. Sunny spells across Scotland, but also quite a few showers drifting in at times on a brisk wind. Breezy in the far south, but mostly dry and bright at times here. Some sunny spells, particularly in the southeast. Could see highs of 21 or 22. It feels a lot cooler than that, though, with the cloud and rain over northern England. That will sink away this evening. Bit of rain for a time over the Midlands, South Wales, and staying quite dank and misty overnight in southwest England. We'll keep some showers going in northern and western Scotland, but otherwise dry nights and with clear skies, turning quite chilly, especially in this central zone, parts of the Midlands, East Wales, well down into single figures, certainly rural areas, not too far off freezing actually to start Friday, but for most, Friday's going to be a fine, bright day, starting cloudy over the Channel Isles. There will still be showers coming in across Scotland, mostly over the north, not too many through the central belt, and the showers also mostly in the morning, tending to ease off by the afternoon. Sunny spells then for quite a few of us during Friday. Temperatures mid to high teens, but quite warm in the south with light winds over the Midlands, South Wales and southern England, widely over 20 degrees Celsius. A fine Friday evening to come as well. Any showers across northern Scotland continuing to fizzle away. That'll lead into, by and large, a fine start to the weekend. Saturday, dry and bright with sunny spells for most, turning cloudier and quite a bit cooler for most of us, though, by Sunday. Goodbye.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation. We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back. You're with GB News. In a moment, we will be talking about the Texas shootings with a mother who also lost her son in shocking circumstances. But first, here are the news headlines.
It's 2:28. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB newsroom. The Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, has announced a £5 billion tax on oil and gas companies to help families struggling through the cost of living crisis. Millions of households will receive a £400 discount off their energy bills, which won't need to be repaid. The lowest income earners will be given £650 in two lump sums in July and in autumn. Pensioners will receive a one-off payment of £300, and in September, 6 million disabled people will receive a payment of £150.
Supporting people with the cost of living is only one part of our plan for a stronger economy. A plan that is creating more jobs, cutting taxes on working people, reducing our borrowing and debt, driving businesses to invest and innovate more, unleashing a skills revolution, seizing the benefits of Brexit and levelling up growth in all parts of the United Kingdom. The British people can trust this government because we have a plan for a stronger economy, and I commend it to this House.
The Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves criticised the government for taking so long to back Labour's plan.
For months, it has been clear that more was necessary to help people bring their bills down. So what took this government so long? Every day that they have refused to act, £53 million more added to Britain's household bills during this cost of living crisis. This government's dither and delay has cost our country dearly.
The Foreign Secretary has accused Russia's President Vladimir Putin of holding the world to ransom over food. The Kremlin has rejected claims it blocked grain exports from Ukraine, saying the West created the situation by imposing sanctions. Liz Truss says pressure must be maintained against Moscow. The first cases of monkeypox have been confirmed in Wales and now in Northern Ireland, bringing the total number across the UK to 80. The Public Health Agency says it's working closely with trusts and GPs to raise awareness of the disease. TV Online and DAB Plus Radio, this is GB News. Now we're going back to We Need to Talk About with Alex.
Imagine being asked to give a DNA test to find out if your child is one of 19 gunned down by a psychopathic shooter at school, so maimed were the victims. Imagine learning that police stood for 1 hour as rampant gunmen embarked upon a killing spree. Imagine a place where an 18-year-old can't buy a beer but can walk into a gun shop and buy one of the most brutal forms of firearm, regardless of his state of mind. Imagine a country where, despite more than 2,000 school shootings in the past 50 years, 9 mass shootings this year alone, where 53 people are shot every day, Guns outnumber human beings, and those that sell them spend more than £200 million a year making sure this tragic trade continues. For the people of Uvalde in Texas, they don't have to imagine. They're living the nightmare. Well, joining me now in the studio is Pastor Lorraine Jones-Burrell, who tragically lost her son to knife crime and has set up Dwaynomics, a boxing centre for young people. Lorraine, I mean, seeing things like this, it must really sort of trigger you, for want of a better word, and what you went through.
It's absolutely horrific. The damage that has been done, the trauma, the shock, the grief. I know what they're going through. The first moments of you being told that your child is being killed. I saw Dwayne literally 45 minutes before he was killed. And it's still a nightmare now, unbelievable. That it's not just the lives that have been taken. I mean, these are children. But it's the ripple effect with the parents, the family, the community. So much work is needed now. So much work. It affects the whole community, mentally, psychologically, physically. I went around telling people that I've become disabled because my heart was shattered. You can't see a shattered heart. My hair dropped out. I thought I had cancer. The doctor said it's extreme alopecia. There's so much damage and things need to be done so that this doesn't happen again.
When you see, getting all emotional, when you see the footage from America and hear some of the reports, does it make you really question how this country has not moved on and banned guns, or, you know, banned young people from getting guns, put more restrictions in place, anything to try and stop a tragedy like this?
Most definitely, because it's not like it's an incurable disease. I mean, we've heard, at the age of 18, you can purchase a gun. Yet you have to be 21 to get alcohol. Come on, it's not rocket science to put some laws in place to prevent this. So with it not happening, and the community, they're powerless. We rely on the government and those that are in positions to make these changes, to execute them, because it's the community that's suffering. I mean, Dwayne was 20 when he got killed. These kids are, what's their ages? Between 10 and 12? No, this is outrageous. Something has to be done. What more do they want? This is real, and we don't want it to get worse, and it will unless there are changes in the law, at least, and then working with communities and the young lad that committed the crime. I mean, nobody's born a psychopath killer. We have to look into the health and well-being and development of families in communities. So much work.
Belinda, I can see as well that it's an emotional topic, isn't it? You're a mother of 4 daughters. How have you reacted to this story?
I haven't been able to sleep properly since I heard. It's really, it's quite a panicky feeling, because it feels like there's a dystopia out there that isn't real. How can you have teenage boys massacring children? I mean, for an ideology is bad enough, but it's not even for an ideology. It's because he was a bit teased at school, or he was a bit of a loner. The thread runs through all of this. Teenage boys who feel isolated and a bit lonely and a bit angry. Nothing terrible has happened to them. They're just a bit peed off with the world, and they're angry, and they want to die, so they're going to go out with a bang. It's a horrific culture that's happening, and I'm not sure what to do, because the tiny amendments that may possibly make their way through won't really have an effect on the circulation of 400 million guns going around, or if they're asked to hand in their guns, only the good people will hand in their guns. The bad ones will keep them all. The access to these machine-like guns for children is evil. And I don't know what can stop it. I've got no answers, and my heart just goes out to all the parents. And you're so right, it's a ripple effects of grief. It takes 10, 20, 30 years for communities to even begin to recover from this.
Lorraine, Belinda, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming into the studio today. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you. Well, you're with GB News on TV and DAB Radio. Coming up, as Foreign Secretary Liz Truss visits the Balkans, we'll be discussing the strategic importance of Bosnia and Serbia to Vladimir Putin. But it's time now for a short break.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation. We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
The last time Bosnia featured in our headlines was probably in the mid-90s, when a bloody, ethnically charged war saw 100,000 slaughtered and over 2 million displaced in a country of only 3 million. The atrocities and war crimes carried out were still being tried at the start of this century. Well, today, Foreign Secretary Liz Truss is visiting the country in a region where tensions are once again being stoked up by Russia, desperate to not see Balkan nations join NATO or get too close to the West at any cost. Meanwhile, as Russia blockades and loots grain leaving Ukrainian ports, many countries in the powder keg region could soon face severe food shortages, which may ignite unrest in a country still driven by tensions between its Bosniak, Serb and Croat communities. Meanwhile, one of the two regions that make up the country is threatening to secede, with the Kremlin supporting the separatists, while most of Europe has yet again been caught woefully asleep at the wheel. But not Britain. On her mission today, Liz Truss will reaffirm the UK's support for the country and seek to do what Britain has become so good at of late, leading the world in pushing back against the tyrants and aggressors that want to tear it apart. We need to talk about the Balkans. Well, let's start with Ivana Stradner, who's a research fellow at American Enterprise Institute in Washington and an expert on the Balkans. Ivana, fantastic to have you on the programme. Is this welcome to you to see our Foreign Secretary going over to Bosnia to try and improve relationships amidst everything going on with Ukraine and Russia's aggression?
Thank you very much for inviting me. And just as you mentioned, it's never really a good news when you see that the Balkans is again in news headlines. So I'm very pleased that Liz Truss is the Foreign Secretary is visiting Bosnia, because it sends a very clear signal to the leaders in the region and to Vladimir Putin that they cannot destabilize the country and Europe writ large. Because while Moscow is still waging a brutal war in Ukraine, Putin is searching for new weak links to disrupt Europe, and Moldova, Georgia, and the Western Balkans are possible new theaters intended to distract the West. So while everyone, is counting the number of tanks, Russia and claiming how Russia is losing the war in Ukraine, I have to admit that Russia does not want to and does not intend to occupy occupy the Western Balkans. Instead, Vladimir Putin is very happy to already use existing tensions in the region based on religion, based on ethnic tensions, and to polarize the country further and to install chaos from within. So similar, to the Kremlin strategy elsewhere in Putin's neighborhood, Russia's goals in the Balkans is basically to de-escalate and position itself as a mediator of the conflict. I mean, the game plan is basically to accomplish several goals: strengthening Moscow's standing in the region, giving Putin leverage over Western powers. They want, the violence to spiral further. And definitely, Russia has been working very hard to invalidate the collective self-defense of NATO, to weaken the European Union, and to establish Russia as a global power broker. And the Western Balkans is an excellent theater for Putin's goals because all those countries are on the European Union path. Some of the countries are already in NATO. So there is a lot of things that Putin can actually use to destabilize the region. And he's already doing that. You just mentioned Bosnia. I mean, Bosnia is really a weak link because you have it's a tripartite society. It's a very, very polarized based on religion, based on ethnic tensions. You just mentioned separatist tensions. Yes, Milorad Dodik threatened with secession, and he is a very close ally of Vladimir Putin. However, I have to admit that United Kingdom has been doing tremendously great things over the past few months, unlike some other European countries, including France and Germany, that have been appeasing Vladimir Putin in the region for years. They have not opened new additional path towards the EU, and that void has been filled with Moscow. So what the United Kingdom has been doing over the past few months, a lot of preventive measures, including imposing severe sanctions on certain leaders who destabilize the region. We just finished the latest NATO exercise in North Macedonia, which is the latest NATO member state. They conducted additional military exercises in Bosnia yesterday. The UK envoy to the Western Balkans also visited Bosnia and Herzegovina to discuss, further security issues. They pledged, also to invest more in Bosnia and Herzegovina in the region. So these are all really great things, that the United Kingdom has been doing to prevent additional conflict.
Ivana, thank you ever so much, and thank you for shining a light on something ahead of the curve, I think, and sadly so. Ivana Stradner there, who's a research fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. Well, let's go back to my studio guest, Belinda DeLucy. I mean, I often like to try and touch on these stories. People might think, well, why are we suddenly talking about Bosnia? Why talk about Serbia? The fact of the matter is these could be the big headlines in a couple of months' time.
Oh, absolutely, and we badly let down that area in the early 1990s. The EU, including when the UK was in the EU, we failed them, and tens of thousands were killed, and now they're at risk again. Putin's never hidden his nostalgia for the USSR, and although he doesn't want to redo it completely, he wants a USSR light, so he's satelliting all the Balkan regions at the moment. Goodness knows who he's putting in there to stir up trouble and to influence, and I think Liz Truss has been amazing. I mean, she's touring Europe to the most vulnerable countries and really standing up for them. I've been so impressed. I know Boris is getting a kicking at the moment, but the government's response to Putin's invasion of Ukraine and Putin's sort of desperate attempt to regain his influence in the region has been incredible. Good for Liz Truss. I hope she continues.
Belinda, thank you. Well, preparations for the biggest military flight display since the RAF centenary took place yesterday, involving 20 planes and helicopters. They'll join a further 50 flying over Buckingham Palace for the Queen's birthday parade flypast in just over a week's time in honour of Her Majesty's Platinum Jubilee. Our royal reporter Cameron Walker got a rare insight into the military's preparations.
Annual tradition requiring military precision. The Queen's birthday parade flypast over Buckingham Palace will showcase the best of British airmanship. A dramatic start to the rehearsal when RAF Cranwell was evacuated due to a fire alarm. Future officer cadets mustered outside. But a slight glitch didn't stop a smooth glide, as Air Commodore Mike Borkwill points out.
From my perspective, the rehearsal today went superbly. Really pleased, very good timing, good formation, and with the weather decisions we had to make, really pleased overall. So we're looking good for next week.
Around 70 aircraft from the Royal Air Force, Royal Navy and British Army will be taking part. That's the largest number since the RAF's centenary in 2018. The iconic College Hall at RAF Cranwell doubled up as Buckingham Palace for the rehearsal. Perhaps a fitting stand-in, considering Princes Charles, William and Edward all trained there. Helicopters will lead the formation. They're the slowest aircraft. As the fastest, the famous Red Arrows are the flying finale. Aircrew tell GB News what it means to fly on such a unique occasion.
It's an absolute privilege, definitely a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and something I don't think we'll ever see again, so big honour for me to be selected to be part of the crew for this.
It's probably one of the best jobs in the Army, I'd say. Get to fly on a regular basis, daily basis.
Everyone was keen to be part of the fly past.
Wings in the air will follow boots on the ground. The 1st Battalion of the Irish Guards will troop their colour on Thursday the 2nd of June to mark the official birthday of Her Majesty the Queen. More than 1,200 officers and soldiers from the Household Division will put on a display of military pageantry on Horse Guards Parade, together with 240 horses and hundreds of army musicians. A royal gun salute will also fire. The Queen has decided only working members of the royal family and their children will appear on the balcony to watch the planes fly over. This means no Harry and Meghan and no Prince Andrew. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex still plan to come to London, however, to celebrate the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. With several official events planned to celebrate Her Majesty's 70 years of service, perhaps palace aides are working hard behind the scenes to make sure nothing becomes an unwanted distraction. Cameron Walker, GB News, Lincolnshire.
Wow, joining us now in the studio is our very own royal reporter, Cameron Walker. Cameron, first of all, I'm so jealous that you got to go and see military aircraft up close. I'm a big plane fanatic. That's something not many people know. But yeah, we're talking about distractions in the Jubilee. There could well be distractions, certainly at St Paul's Cathedral, in the form of the American contingent.
Yes, well, if you believe the Telegraph are reporting that Harry and Meghan are indeed on the guest list to be at the Queen's service of Thanksgiving at St Paul's Cathedral. That's happening next Friday as part of the Jubilee bank holiday celebrations, yes.
And what else is in the menu for the Jubilee pomp and circumstance?
Well, immediately after that fly past, which we saw in my piece there's going to be the lighting of these Jubilee beacons. 3,000 of them across the country and the UK's overseas territories are going to be lit, starting with the principal beacon being lit at Buckingham Palace. Now, they have a massive tree, a 21-metre tall tree sculpture, which I've seen. It's very, very big, encompassing 350 native British varieties of trees, and that's going to form the centrepiece with a big light display and big projections on Buckingham Palace. But this is my favourite bit, Alex. Pub licensing hours are going to be extended by an extra 2 hours from 11 p.m. till 1 a.m. So that's very exciting for the Thursday.
That is what the Jubilee is all about. Cameron Walker, thank you ever so much. Always lovely having you in the studio. Oh, well, you have to love Sunak's sense of humour, don't you? This ain't no windfall tax, bruv. This is a temporary and targeted energy profit levy, fam. Labour ain't telling me what to do. And as for those high-minded hacks out there trying to claim they are, try sticking that in your headline, mate. When you send your kids to school, you expect them to be sat in their little uniforms, learning the 3 Rs. What you don't expect is for lessons that highlight fetishes, bullying other pupils for not subscribing to the trans agenda, and being asked in groups to describe in lurid detail sex acts. A debate on maths, maybe, but the other way round, hell no. But in some schools, companies are being brought in to run sex ed classes using materials parents are then banned from seeing in legal contracts drawn up by the schools themselves. Meanwhile, the School Standards Minister, Robin Walker, has said there's nothing the government can do about it. Remind me, Robin, what your actual job is again? The fact we have a Conservative government that seems to totally fail in doing anything to safeguard children sends chills down my spine. And on much the same theme, it comes as no surprise to me that more than 1 in 10 16 to 24-year-old females now identify as lesbian, bisexual or other, according to official figures. Could it be anything to do with society's obsession with girl-on-girl porn or the relentless LGBTQ+++ grooming on platforms such as Instagram for teenage girls to bind their breasts or have them surgically removed to become boys? Or the fact that due to Kardashian culture and Instagram filters, many teenage girls think they have to either have ridiculous cosmetic surgery or they'll not be attractive to the opposite sex? Look, there's nothing wrong with different sexualities, but there is something very, very wrong with this screamingly evident brainwashing happening to young people in a society that has become dangerously sexualised. Now, little did I know it was the National Cat Awards today. Bad cat mum Alex has totally failed in her duty to nominate the one and only Mog, there she is, for a gong for basically being the greatest cat ever. But the finalists do sound pretty great, including a cat who works with adults with learning difficulties and another puss who helps cure her owner's depression. But did you know that cats purr at a hertz that actually lowers blood pressure and heals bones? Owning a cat also cuts your risk of having a heart attack by a third. That is, until they jump out at you or try to trip you up at the top of the stairs. Belinda, what's your take on all of these things?
Well, I totally agreed with your bit about this kind of brainwashing and indoctrination of our young by adults. You know, an adult's duty is to protect children, not project their fetishy, kinky, little weird worlds onto little bubbers. I mean, there is no safe space for childhood anymore. You've got drag queens reading stories to children in children's libraries. You get kids being told at school that you can wear whatever you like, you want to be whatever sex you like, there are no boundaries, there's no nothing. And yet at the same time, the mental health of our young is deteriorating on a level that's never been seen before. And it's because they're completely bombarded with this idea you can escape from your body. If you're unhappy, just be another sex, you know, or join a kind of cult that makes you feel wanted and belonged. The problem with teaching sex acts and things in the classroom is that even if it's not taught there, it's on all their phones. Children have these little screens that give them access to the most disgusting stuff that no child should ever see, that's completely ruining like romance and courtship and wooing partners, you know, when they're older and teenagers. Everything is very, very hardcore from a young age. Doesn't matter if you put protections on your home computers, they'll just have to go to a mate's house and do it. So I think if you want to protect your children from that, parents have to be more engaged with their teachers, because at the moment teachers are getting a free rein to tell your children, you know, that they can be anything they like and change their pronouns behind their parents' back. It's secretive, it's grooming as far as I'm concerned. No stranger should be talking to a child under the age of 11 about sex acts. And if they are, you need to report them to the police.
And pretty shocking, isn't it, that the school standards minister said, oh yeah, nothing we can do about it.
Well, it's the whole thing, my hands are tied business we had when they were in the EU. We thought we got rid of that. They are accountable. Our government has to be accountable for the safeguarding of children in our schools. And at the moment, we're creating a generation that will one day be in power, and we will really reap the unfortunate disadvantages of all this.
Belinda, couldn't agree more. Always wonderful having you on the programme. Belinda DeLucy. That's all I've got time for. Join me again for We Need to Talk About on GB News at the same time, 2 o'clock tomorrow. Coming up next, it's The Briefing with Darren McCaffrey. Have a lovely afternoon, and now it's time for the weather forecast.
Hello, Alex Deacon here with your latest weather update. Three-way split today. Sunshine and showers for Scotland and Northern Ireland, a dull and damp zone in central areas, and then largely dry and bright in the south thanks to an area of high pressure. Low pressure is dominating further north, and it's in these central areas where we've got the dull damp weather from these weather fronts bringing cloud and rain for much of the afternoon over parts of northern England, north and mid Wales and into the Midlands at times. The far north of England may brighten up. Some fine weather for Northern Ireland, not too many showers here. Sunny spells across Scotland, but also quite a few showers drifting in at times on a brisk wind. Breezy in the far south, but mostly dry and bright at times here. Some sunny spells, particularly in the southeast, could see highs of 21 or 22. It feels a lot cooler than that, though, with the cloud and rain over northern England. That will sink away this evening. bit of rain for a time over the Midlands, South Wales, and staying quite dank and misty overnight in southwest England. We'll keep some showers going in northern and western Scotland, but otherwise dry nights and with clear skies, turning quite chilly, especially in this central zone, parts of the Midlands, East Wales, well down into single figures, certainly rural areas, not too far off freezing actually to start Friday, but for most, Friday's going to be a fine, bright day, starting cloudy over the Channel Isles. There will still be showers coming in across Scotland, mostly over the north, not too many through the central belt, and the showers also mostly in the morning, tending to ease off by the afternoon. Sunny spells then for quite a few of us during Friday. Temperatures mid to high teens, but quite warm in the south with light winds over the Midlands, South Wales and southern England, widely over 20 degrees Celsius. A fine Friday evening to come as well. Any showers across northern Scotland continuing to fizzle away. That'll lead into, by and large, a fine start to the weekend. Saturday, dry and bright with sunny spells for most, turning cloudier and quite a bit cooler for most of us, though, by Sunday. Goodbye.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest,